private officials, the security forces. Right now, there's a great deal of anger towards state security. In the eyes of protesters, state security was the strong institution behind the regime that was alleged to be involved in corruption, extortion, torture, all kinds of violations. That's why so much of the anger has been directed at them physically at their buildings. Now, in terms of the justice, we've already seen the prosecutor general here unleash some very strong investigations against former regime officials, including some former ministers, as well as those closely affiliated with the ruling party and official businessmen. Those trials are getting underway this week and some last week. But more importantly, people want to see the State Security Service dismantled. They want to see the Ministry of Interior reinvent itself with a new, credible police force that respects human rights. The question really is, can this current government begin to undo some of the past while delivering that justice to the citizens?
OK, so new cabinet there in Egypt. Ayman, thanks very much indeed for that. It's certainly all happening this hour because Tunisia's interim Prime Minister Beji Caid Sebsi has appointed his new cabinet. That comes after a spate of resignations. It'll be the third caretaker government since the overthrow of Zine El Abidine Ben Ali in January. Caid Sebsi was appointed after the previous interim Prime Minister Mohamed Ghannouchi resigned following violent protests over his close ties to Ben Ali. Well, Nazneen Mashiri is in Tunis. Nazneen, tell us about this new cabinet, particularly key posts such as the Interior Minister.
It's being billed as a new government, but there's not much new about it because the key posts like the Interior Minister, the Defence Minister, Foreign Minister and Minister of Justice remain the same. Now, we had several resignations, including that of the Prime Minister. That's why Beji Caid Sebsi is now the new interim Prime Minister. That is why he's decided to appoint some new people, some new faces, but those key posts remain. I think the main point to remember about all of this is that this is a difficult time in Tunisia, and what the Prime Minister is trying to do is to bring some stability, and the new people that we're seeing in government are technocrats. They're not politicians. And basically, they will be working towards a new election, which we don't know when it will be, but they will be a caretaker government looking after the dealings, the day in, day out dealings of government, while the government works out when these new elections will be.
Yeah, and there's a lot of challenges ahead, isn't there? In fact, a lot of people asking questions about where exactly is Tunisia headed.
I think the key point for a lot of people who were protesting was to change the constitution. And a lot of people have stopped protesting now because they're pretty happy that the country will have an election to get this new constitutional committee on July 24th. And the constitution is really crucial for many people here because they see it as a way to basically get the things that they wanted for, what they fought for in the Jasmine Revolution, what they fought for on the streets, what they fought for, a new democratic Tunisia and a new way forward.
Nazneen, thanks very much indeed for that. Nazneen Mashiri in the Tunisian capital there. Coming up here on the News Hour, on patrol with international forces in Afghanistan, we look at how successful the extra American troops have been. And as Mexico continues to battle drug-related violence, many are looking towards spirituality for comfort. Stay with us.
It's 36 to 38 degrees Celsius. No higher, no lower. It's soft, but not too soft. It's just enough to smooth things out. It's all of this, halfway to anywhere, with plenty of time to spare. The Qatar Airways Premium Terminal in Doha. 5-star service for first and business class passengers. Qatar Airways, world's 5-star airline.
The army has to prove they have no intentions of hijacking power and of keeping any remnants of the old regime.
From people making the news.
The earthquake happened over a year ago. Now you want to come back and help your fellow Haitians?
To those it affects.
If Washington doesn't begin to help stabilize the government, it will create a backlash.
Behind the headlines.
Neither the United States nor China can hurt the other without hurting itself.
Is the inside story. At this time on Al Jazeera.
Welcome back. You're with Al Jazeera. Let's take you through the top stories now. Rebel fighters in the Libyan town of Ras Lanuf are battling pro-Gaddafi forces as the unrest continues in the oil-rich North African nation. We're getting reports of airstrikes leaving several people dead, including an entire family who were trying to flee the violence. Meanwhile, in an interview with the French news channel, Colonel Gaddafi has denied reports of hundreds, even thousands of deaths. He insists al-Qaeda is to blame for the violence in Libya. Egypt's Prime Minister Essam Sharaf has appointed a new caretaker cabinet. Ministers of Egypt's new government have been sworn in by the head of the Armed Forces Supreme Council. Hundreds of Iraqis have taken to the streets in Baghdad, voicing their remorse for voting in the country's elections a year ago. Protesters say they regret electing the current members of parliament, who they say haven't helped solve the country's problems. Iraqis have been demonstrating since last month against widespread corruption, unemployment and poor public services. Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki recently gave his ministers 100 days to improve their performance or risk being fired. And staying with Iraq, the leader of the Iraqi coalition has told Al Jazeera that power sharing in the country is a myth. Ayad Alawi's group won the most seats in last year's parliamentary poll, and he was offered the position as head of the powerful new Security Council to promote inclusiveness, but he turned it down. Al Jazeera's Rageh asked him why.
Well, let me tell you, there is no power sharing. The power sharing is something that is fake. It's not true. Nothing is happening because the 9 agreements have not been fulfilled, including this National Council. I thought it's not worth it since there is no trust anymore.
And we're just going to leave Ayad Alawi there for a moment as we cross to Stephen Cole for some breaking news coming out of Europe.
Shirley, thank you. The UK Foreign Minister William Hague, I was talking about him earlier, is just standing up to make a statement in the House of Commons about events in Libya.
Designed to consolidate Gaddafi's position and intimidate his opponents. His forces remain in control of Tripoli, Sabha and Sirte, but his authority is contested in large swathes of the country where local tribes have withdrawn their support. There is a clear risk of protracted conflict and an extremely dangerous and volatile situation in large parts of the country. Mr. Speaker, our position is that Colonel Gaddafi must put an immediate stop to the use of armed force against civilians and hand over power without delay to a government which recognises the aspirations of the Libyan people and is more representative and accountable. On the 5th of March, opposition groups in the east formed an interim national council based in Benghazi. Ministers and FCO officials are in contact with members of this council who welcomed the idea of a British diplomatic mission to Libya. This engagement is vitally important to gain a better understanding of the political, military and humanitarian situation on the ground. Last week, I authorised the dispatch of a small British diplomatic team to eastern Libya in uncertain circumstances which we judge required their protection.